Singapore has long been one of the most popular places to run and start a business, but what is it that makes Singapore such a business-friendly jurisdiction? In other words, what are the actual practical benefits that you would have if you decide to start and run your business in Singapore? So I was just in Singapore, sort of exploring what it's like to live there, the residency option, the business setup, banking, everything like that. And I made a lot of notes for myself on the things that would actually make Singapore a good place for someone like you, a location independent entrepreneur, to set up your business. So in this video, I thought I would share the top 5 reasons why you might want to set up your business in Singapore. Before we start, this video is not tax advice, it's not business advice, anything like that. Everything when it comes to setting up your business, taxes, all of this is always a very case-by-case decision. These are just some things to consider and some reasons why you might want to choose Singapore over some other places. Now, there's a lot of things to like about Singapore overall. It's a very well-run economy. Yes, reasonably low taxes. It's a very clean place. It's a very safe place, a very great city to live, in my opinion, a very livable place in general. And it is also extremely business friendly. Like, it's probably one of the most business friendly places in the entire world. In fact, it's often ranked as one of the freest economies in the entire world. And the first practical benefit that you would get if you decide to set up your business in Singapore is that it is reasonably fast and inexpensive to open. Singapore have realized that if they make it easy for people to set up businesses there, rather than burying people with endless bureaucracy and fees and lawyers and everything like that you might have to go through in some other countries, then that would probably mean that more people are going to set up businesses there, which in turn is going to lead for more jobs, everything like that. The process itself is reasonably simple. Generally, the steps are that you need to just choose your business name, which you're going to have to check in the official registry called ACRA to make sure that the business name is available. And then you're going to need a secretary for your business, as well as a nominee director, unless you are based in Singapore yourself, because every company in Singapore has to have at least one director that is local, and you're going to need to have a local address. The incorporation fee and like all the fees to set up your business are around 300 to 350 Singaporean dollars. And while you can, of course, set up all of this yourself, like the secretary yourself, the director, address, everything like this, if you're even a remotely successful entrepreneur, I would definitely suggest instead using a company incorporation service to do this for you for a small fee. Now, I've looked around and I basically found that the best service that I would use myself if I was setting up a Singapore business is called Awesome, who I then reached out to and partnered with for this video. Because as much as Singapore is very business friendly, there is always some hassle when it comes to setting up your business, like a lot of admin, a lot of documents. You're gonna need to figure out accounting, everything like this. So with Awesome's business incorporation service, it will essentially handle all of this admin for you. I would definitely recommend going for the full compliance service, because that is also going to include everything that you need for accounting and tax, all filing and bookkeeping, financial statement preparation, tax returns, everything like that. So all you have to do is on the website, you click on get started right there, and then you're going to get a series of questions. Are any of your directors citizens or permanent residents of Singapore? In my case, no. And then you're going to get some options on what you can choose. They're going to tell you what is covered, what is your expected revenue. Let's say it's something like that. Do you need an employment pass? So I'm going to click yes. Then all you have to do is create an account and you can get started from there. Awesome have helped more than 15,000 entrepreneurs start up their businesses in Singapore. And I managed to get a special deal from them only for the viewers of this channel, where if you use my link down below in the description, you will get 16% off all of their Singapore incorporation packages. And in case you're not interested in Singapore, let's say you want to set up a company in Hong Kong or the UK or something like that, they also have similar services that you can look at on their website for different countries as well. But the second reason why you might want to set up your business in Singapore is to allow you to move to Singapore. Now, Singapore is nowadays much more difficult to move to and to get a residency in than it was in the past, as because the country has become so established, they have sort of needed to limit the people coming into the country. But if you set up a business in Singapore, you are able to, if you go through a few hoops, give yourself what is called an employment pass and therefore be able to legally live and work in Singapore. And the way that is going to work is that you will need to pass what is called the Compass points system. So there's essentially all these categories where you're going to get points. Like let's say you have a university degree, then it's going to give you some points. And the more salary you pay yourself, the more points you get in the system. And if you get enough points to pass the threshold, then you are able to issue yourself an employment pass. This is how they ensure that only qualified people that are actually going to contribute to the economy are going to be able to move to Singapore. So it's slightly more involved as something like the UAE, where no one's going to ask any questions. You could just set up a company and hire yourself, no questions asked. But provided that you are making even a little bit of money, you should be able to pass this point system. The third reason is that Singapore has a territorial tax system. Now, why is this advantageous? If you don't run a Singapore company from Singapore, then you don't actually have to pay corporate taxes in Singapore, because Singapore has a territorial tax system. We can see right here, a company is considered to be a Singapore tax resident company for a particular year of assessment if the control and management of its business were exercised in Singapore in the preceding calendar year. If the control and management of the company are not exercised in Singapore, then the company is regarded as a non-resident for the year of assessment. So this is what might make it a great option for someone like a digital nomad, where you just nomad around the world. So if you don't manage and control your Singapore company from Singapore, it may not be liable for Singapore taxes. But again, this is not tax advice. This is just my interpretation of the law. If you're considering doing this, please do speak to a proper professional. Reason number 4 is banking and business friendliness. Now, Singapore is widely seen to have the best banking in the world. So let's say you live somewhere like Thailand or Bali. You might not want to set up a Thai or an Indonesian company, because the banking and the sort of infrastructure for all the tools you want to have access to as a business might not be as good in those countries. So there might be a case to be made to start a Singapore company to get access to Singapore banking, and then simply use those Singapore bank accounts from the country where you actually live. And a very underrated thing in terms of business friendliness is that Singapore has leaders that are very, very pro-business, and they have shown a very long track record of making things better for businesses and being very pro-business. This is in stark contrast to a place like the EU that is extremely anti-business. So as a business owner, this gives you stability. Like, obviously we never know what is going to happen in the world, but you can be fairly certain that going forward, the conditions to run a business in Singapore are going to continue to be good rather than declining like in a place like the EU. And reason number 5 is legitimacy. Another very, very underrated thing that you might not consider until you get to a point where this essentially becomes a problem. So what I mean by here is that let's say you have a company in some weird jurisdiction that doesn't necessarily have the best reputation in the world. So let's say you have a client somewhere like the UK or Singapore or US, and they see your company, they might think twice before doing business with you simply because of the reputation of the jurisdiction where you're based in. Whereas Singapore, for example, like the UAE or the US, UK, are extremely reputable business jurisdiction. This means that no one's really gonna bat an eye when doing business with a Singapore company. I know it maybe shouldn't be like this, but this is simply the reality of the world. Perception really matters. And another practical reason why this matters is that with things like Stripe, depending on the jurisdiction where your company is based in, when your customers are trying to buy from you via Stripe, their cards might get declined because the card company thinks that the payment is going to some weird country that they don't know about. Whereas if it's going to Singapore and they're being charged by a Singapore company, it's much less likely that the cards of your customers are going to get declined, which is going to lead to more overall revenue to your business simply because you're established in a legitimate business jurisdiction. So these are 5 reasons why you might want to consider Singapore. For me personally, I'm going to continue to have my business set up in the UAE because for my situation, for my specific needs, that actually works better. Let me know if you're interested in a video where I go into more detail about a UAE company versus a Singapore company. Let me know which other jurisdictions you would like me to cover. And again, if you're looking to set up a Singapore company, you can check out Awesome down below in the description. But the other great option that I often also recommend to people is a US LLC. And this is actually a structure that I personally use myself as well. So if you're interested to hear the benefits of having a US LLC, then I recommend you watch this video right here, where I go through the benefits of a US LLC as well as a step-by-step process to set one up if you're interested. So watch that video next, and I'll see you in the next one.